guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paige and this is my open book. Today we're coming at you with a February wrap-up, so grab a drink and grab a snack and let's get into all the books that I read in the month of February. I feel like I did pretty good in the month of February in terms of focusing on quality over quantity, not falling into the overconsumption trap of feeling like I always had to be reading, going on to the next new thing. So I feel like I really slowed down, so I'm proud of myself. I also made some progress in a few series. I didn't really finish any. I mean, I guess technically I finished 2 series, but we'll get into that. Actually, we're gonna start with that. The first 2 books that I read this month was finishing the Skyridge Hot Shots Firefighter series. So I read Protect, which was book 2 by Paisley Hope. Spoiler alert, I really liked book 2 and book 3 a lot. Book 1 was our book club pick for January, and unfortunately that one was not it for me. But I still wanted to continue the series because each book is written by a different author. So just because I didn't like book 1 didn't really have any say about if I was gonna like book 2 and book 3. So I still gave them a fair shot, and I'm really glad I did. Paisley Hope, I loved her writing style for sure. So I feel like out of the 3 books, she was probably my favorite author out of the series. And this was my first time reading something by her. Which is good. I've already picked up like 2 of her other books in physical, and then I've already got 1 downloaded on my Kindle, so I definitely want to read more from her because her writing style was really great. This one is a single mom, kind of like Second Chance, friends to enemies to lovers, but also like brother's best friend. This one's got a lot of good tropes in here. It's small town. He's a firefighter. He fights wildfires. He's part of the same crew as, you know, the guy in book 1, and he has been pining after her since they were in high school, basically. So he was best friends with her brother, her twin brother actually. You find out in the first book, unfortunately, that he did die in a fire. And now his twin sister, the female main character of this book, is coming back to the small town with her daughter because she was recently going through a divorce. And you find out the history that this female main character has with her twin's best friend, Rowan. The mouth on this man, let me tell you what. He's top tier book boyfriend material, okay? The way he cares for her and her daughter, because the filming character, not only is she a single mom that recently went through a divorce and got out of a marriage that wasn't really that great, the father of her daughter is not very involved. She's a nurse, so she literally like has to take care of other people 24/7. She never gets to take care of herself, but that's what Rowan is for. That's what Rowan is for. And I love when characters have history together. You get like the backstory of when they were in high school and they kind of like almost had a thing. Then they had this like huge falling out. So you get to, you know, find out that little mystery along the way. And it was really, really good. Very emotional. And I would highly recommend. Even though the first book wasn't my favorite, I feel like the series as a whole still stands out. And you should definitely check it out if you haven't. I gave this book 4.5 stars. Because there were some parts that I feel like dragged out a little bit. Just a little bit. Just like half stars worth, okay? Like this was almost 5 star. Almost 5 star. Then I went into book 3, which I can't decide which one's my favorite. I did rate this one higher. I did give this one a 5 star. Because even though I liked Paisley Hope's writing style more, this one was like super angsty, even more emotional than book 2. And I just loved these characters so much. So in this one, the filming character is also a single mom. It's because she is a widow. Her husband, I believe he was an EMT, I want to say. Some kind of first responder. I'm not sure if he was like a police officer, EMT, or what. Tragically passed away on the job and left her with, I think she has 3 kids. My memory is terrible. I'm so sorry, you guys. I had the flu last month and I feel like I'm still recovering from like the brain fog of it all. But I do remember Xander, the main character, he has been pining after her and just yearning for her even when she was married. I love it. I love it. I don't know what you want me to say. But yeah, she either has 2 or 3 kids. Oh, I think it's 3 because she just had a baby. That's what it was. That's what it was. It's coming back to me. She was pregnant at the beginning of this book. So her husband's death is very recent. Very recent. So some might say this is a little bit taboo or forbidden. But I think that's what made it even better, even better. Also, just the angst of like him knowing that she's already lost somebody to a tragic work accident, and like with what he does for a living, his job is so dangerous and risky that he just like doesn't want to put her and her kids through that again. Oh, you guys, it's so good, so good. Okay, then I went into The Favorites by Elaine Fargo. I really wanted to be obsessed with this one because I saw it getting a lot of hype. People were comparing it to Daisy Jones and the Six, which is one of my favorite books. People, I guess the author also came out and said this is kind of inspired by Wuthering Heights in a way, and people were comparing it to Magnolia Parks because it has like a toxic relationship in it. This one was hard to rate, I'm gonna be honest. I think I just went into it with too high of expectations because I was thinking it was gonna be like a Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and it just wasn't. It just didn't deliver in the same way. She definitely had good pacing, and it's not like her writing was bad. I just didn't really connect with the characters as much as I do with, for example, the characters in Daisy Jones and the Six. It just didn't have that same like obsessiveness. I just didn't have that same obsessiveness feeling. Like I said, the pacing was good. Like I did read it because I feel like I had FOMO and I just like needed to know what happened. I just needed to be in the know about the plot, really. But it's not because I really cared about the characters at all. So this one was kind of hard to rate. I settled on a 3.5 star. Because again, it wasn't the author's fault. I think I just went into it with too high of expectations. And, you know, comparison, they say comparison is the thief of joy. So we'll blame comparison and not give this book a bad rating. So I think 3.5 is fair. But this one is basically about like two figure skaters. They have been training together since they were kids. And really the male main character wasn't really into it until he saw the female main character doing it, and he was just like obsessed with her. So he's like, okay, I'll be your partner. We'll do this together. And there was a lot of drama, lots of drama. And I guess they're coming out with like a documentary about it. So now the female main character is kind of like telling her story and like telling the truth of it all. And again, writing was good, pacing was good. I didn't like these characters. They're not the best people. And I am all for a flawed character. I love a good redemption arc, okay? But this just wasn't giving. Just wasn't giving redemption arc. It's definitely like trashy reality TV documentary kind of thing. So do with that what you will. That might be up your alley. Again, not bad. Just wasn't what I wanted. But that's okay. That's okay because we have my second 6-star read of the year. Puck Chase by G.N. Wright. This is a male hockey romance that I was obsessed with. I was obsessed. You kind of get snippets of their stories with the other two books. She has knocked it out of the park with every book in this series, if I'm being honest. She just doesn't disappoint me. She just doesn't disappoint me, ever. But I think this is my favorite. I really do. I really do. The two male main characters in here, it's very much like Golden Retriever, Black Cat, okay? And I just love that dynamic. One of them is like the broody artist, grumpy, dark past type, and the other one is like the more sunshiny Golden Retriever, the jokester of the group, okay? They play on the same college hockey team together, and they have a little bit of a history, but at the end of the day, it definitely read like hate to love, enemies to lovers at the beginning. I don't even want to get into the plot really, because I feel like the plot wasn't really what sold it. It really is the characters and like the emotional depth that they had when they were talking to each other, talking about each other, their inner thoughts. Like I wanted to eat up every single morsel they were giving me, okay? I don't even want to know how many highlights I had in this book. I feel like I highlighted every single time that they talked about each other, like ever. I was just highlighting something on every single page. And I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. If you love a good opposites attract, college hockey, this is gonna blow everything else out of the water. I'm just saying. Then clearly I was still in a sports romance mood. I went into Delighting the Infernos by Cassie Klein. This is the second book in her Portland Inferno series. And this male main character, I think his name was Kevin, right? Yep, Kevin. The fact that I remember his name should tell you something, okay? Now, I will say this isn't my favorite plot from Cassie Klein. Basically, the way this one read, it was kind of like the female main character has recently found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her. So she's basically has nowhere else to go. And her friend's brother has a place for her to stay. And she's been close with this friend for a while, but she doesn't really know that much about her brother. And apparently he's on the football team, which she didn't know. He's the kicker, but he's definitely more like socially awkward. You definitely can tell that he has some kind of like behavioral or like mental health thing going on. The author doesn't come out and say what it is. I don't know if he's like actually diagnosed, but he's definitely kind of like isolated himself, and his family does kind of like baby him because he's not neurotypical. He's clearly neurodivergent in some way. And the female main character is so understanding and supportive, but also like not in a way where she's just like always there for him. It's more so like she kind of lets him do his own thing. She's like, no, you, even though you do things differently, or even though you may need certain accommodations, you are still capable just like everybody else. And yeah, it was just really, really refreshing to not have like an alpha asshole sports romance, because I feel like especially with sports romances that's really common. And he was very like gentle, laid back. Maybe not laid back, because he could be a little high strung at the same time. But regardless, he was still possessive and protective in his own way, which I loved. And yeah, I just think that Cassie Klein really brought a unique character to this series, and I was here for it. I was here for it. Like I said, the plot wasn't that great, and the female main character wasn't my favorite, so it was hard for me to rate it like super high. I still gave it a 3-star because I feel like it's still really solid. Then I went into The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy. I don't know why I was reading like so many sports romances. I think this is when I was sick, actually. So I knew I needed something like lighthearted, easy to follow, easy to kind of like get invested in. I actually listened to this one on audio, and the narrators were really good. And this one ended up surprising me. The beginning was slow, and I feel like it was very like cliche, like kind of cheesy, cringe, college hockey romance a little bit. But the second half totally got better. The plot ends up getting really deep actually, and it kind of talks about like really interesting topics. It goes into the female main character having to unfortunately deal with an abusive ex and what that's like for her given her past. And I think that this is a great story to give perspective about why victims of abuse don't always come forward. I think that Elle Kennedy did a great job with that topic especially. And the male main character is going through some family issues, and he also is trying to like make his ex jealous, this ex that he's like hasn't really been able to get over. So the two main characters do like a fake dating situation, and she also needs a partner for her upcoming dance competition, so he ends up being her dance partner. And yeah, I think these two characters had really unique personalities as well. The female main character is definitely like a ball buster, but like not in an obnoxious way, if that makes sense. And then the male main character, I think it was interesting to see that he was still kind of like emotionally hung up on his ex, and people kind of like thought he was a player, when in reality he just can't get over his ex, and he just feels like he's lacking emotional depth in his relationships. He's kind of like over it. He wants to settle down. And yeah, I just felt like this one took me by surprise. It ended up being a 4-star. Then another 6-star. There were actually 3. Stay tuned. Under an Endless Moon by Miss A.L. Jackson. Are we surprised? Are we surprised? She's my favorite author of all time. I'm telling you, when she does Motorcycle Club, there's just something about it that stands out. Okay, so this one is another brother's best friend, but this one definitely has like a darker romance undertone to it. I think because it's a Motorcycle Club, I feel like those usually come with the territory. But in this one, the male main character, so this is book 2 in the series, so you kind of learn more about the Motorcycle Club and like what their mission is in the first book. And they all started in like your stereotypical motorcycle club when they were younger, but now they're kind of doing their own thing, and they're trying to help women get out of really bad and dangerous situations. So they kind of have like their own underground operation going on, where each man in their crew has like a different job in the process. So like one of them will help get the girls out, the other one owns a hotel and he helps them have a safe place to stay. The other one owns a club that they use to kind of like cover up the funds for everything that they do. Then they have one that gets them from the safe house to their new life. Then you have the one who does more of the tech stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see the perspective of every guy in the team eventually once the series is done. But in this one, this male main character, Otto, he's the one who gets them from the safe house to their new life. And then the female main character, she's the sister of the guy who's in charge of the club, who was in the first book. And you kind of get a little bit of the backstory in the first book, but basically her and her brother I think their story is kind of like what inspired this team to do what they do, because the brother helped the female character get out from underneath the abusive father. So they were kind of like on their own, and they went to go stay with the motorcycle club, and that's when she met Otto, when she was a teenager and freshly out of an abusive home. So they've been through a lot together. It's definitely friends to lovers. They have really great banter going on, and everyone around them basically can tell that they like each other, but they'll never act on it because they just feel like it would ruin their friendship. It would ruin like kind of the family dynamic they've built in the club with everybody. You know, it's very much found family, right? So I think they just don't want to mess that up. And plus, the main character, Otto, he promised her brother that he wouldn't go there. So he definitely has this like self-imposed limit on himself where he's made it forbidden in his mind, but that attraction is still there underneath the surface. And it kind of bubbles up in this book because someone is after Raven, the female main character. So she goes to stay with Otto so that she has like a safe place to live. It's from the forced proximity of living together. Plus, this is really good romantic suspense in terms of like trying to figure out who's after her and what their motives are. This was very well done. Again, very emotional. I highlighted so many things. I was like taking pictures of the things I was highlighting. I was typing up notes about the things I was highlighting. Like, I was fully invested, and I just love them. I think Raven is definitely one of my favorite female main characters because even though she has a hard past and she's very like vulnerable and innocent in some ways, but in other ways she's definitely like not a damsel in distress, and she's definitely like strong and very much trying to like help combat the insecurities that the male main character has. And you know, he obviously wants to be protective of her, but she is just as protective of Otto as he is for her, and I love her for that. She was definitely very strong and very inspiring for sure. So another 6-star read. Then I finally made progress in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. I read Lover Enshrined. Oh my god, easy 5-star. Easy. There were some parts that were hard to read. I think this one is definitely more so focused on like the action and the world and the plot, and not so much on the romance in this one, which I didn't even mind. Honestly, I really didn't even mind, because now we're really getting into like the nitty-gritty of the world building in terms of like the vampires versus the vampire hunters, and then you have like the different hierarchies within the vampire world. So you have like the Glamera, which are like the rich, like aristocrat kind of tier, and then you have the Black Dagger Brotherhood, who they're kind of like the warriors. Then you also learn more about the more like spiritual side of the vampire world in terms of like the women who are picked as the chosen, and they're supposed to be the ones that are like breeding, you know, new vampires for the race. So you kind of get that whole dynamic in this book too. So with that, there were a lot of points of views in this one, and it's all third person. So it makes sense, and I understand why she did it, but just as a reader, there are definitely some parts where I really had to like take my time and like really slow down when I was reading, which it was probably good for me because, you know, like we talked about at the beginning of this video, that is one of my goals for 2025, is to really like slow down and be more present with my reading. So I think this book definitely helped me with that. She's taking this in such an interesting direction, and the world is just, there's just so many layers. I can't get into it. You just gotta read it. You just gotta read it. If you like paranormal, if you like vampires, if you were like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, or even like True Blood or Vampire Diaries or Twilight or anything else like that, you're gonna love this series. It's a doozy. There's like over 20 books in the series, and this is only I think like book 5 or 6. So we got a ways to go, but I'm definitely invested, and I'm excited to see where it's going. Another 6-star read. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I've been seeing mixed reviews, so maybe not. Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Listen, I've heard some people say that they don't like it, but I was such a simp for this book. Again, I was highlighting everything. Like, let me show you how many tabs. Hold. Look at this. That's crazy. For just a contemporary sports college romance, for me to have highlighted that many things is crazy. crazy. It's crazy, okay? This one follows a swimmer and a diver. And again, college romance. They both go to Stanford, and they're also both kind of like in the STEM field a little bit, which it's Allie Hazelwood. Like, are we surprised? No. But what's interesting about this one is when it starts out, the main character is actually dating another girl that's on the female main character's diving team. So I've heard some people say they don't like that aspect of it. They feel like it was more about the girl that he was with originally and not as much about the female main character. I disagree. I feel like there was definitely plenty about the female main character. She's going to therapy. She is working through some things with her diving because she had a recent injury that she's trying to get over, and just kind of like her building up her confidence again, and just kind of like understanding more about her mental health and how she processes things. So I personally think that it was more about the female main character. Now, do they talk about his ex a lot? Yes, because she's best friends with the girl and he used to date the girl. So like, and they're all like in the same team. You know what I mean? Like it makes sense in my opinion. So I was obsessed. I love the dynamic between these two characters. I love the setup where basically, this isn't a spoiler because it happens like in the first chapter, the female main character is at a dinner with her diving team, and her friend is talking about how she is happy with her relationship, but they're not compatible sexually. That's why a lot of people say this book is about kink. It's because like that's kind of what starts a relationship off, is the female main character and the male main character, they realize that they have like compatible sexual interests. So that's kind of like what starts this story basically. I feel like when people hear the word kink, they think that that means, oh, it's gonna be like really hardcore whips and chains and toys and crazy positions and all, you know what I mean? But just because the book says it's going to explore kink doesn't mean it's gonna be hardcore, over the top. I personally liked it. I feel like it definitely reminded me of like when Sierra Simone writes about kink, because it's not about what they actually do, right? It's more about the thought process behind it, like the way it develops the relationship, the emotional aspect of it, the way you have to be vulnerable with the other person, the level of trust that's there. So I think it's really just talking about, like, you could use this about any sexual relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be like super duper kinky. You know what I mean? I don't know. I really liked it. I basically feel like this combines everything I love about like Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey and like a Sierra Simone book. So do with that what you will. Next, I was able to get the audiobook for Vipers and Virtuosos, which is a Rockstar romance. This is actually the second book in a series by Sav R. Miller. This is the Monsters and Muses series, I believe. So I'm making progress. Making progress on a series. This is only book 2, so I still got ways to go, but that's okay. My library had the first 3 audiobooks for this series on Hoopla, so I was able to listen to it, and it was really good. It was really good. The first book, I didn't hate it, but I wasn't like obsessed with it like everybody else is. Promises and Pomegranates, I think is what it's called. All of these are kind of inspired by Greek mythology. They're not retellings by any means, they're just kind of like inspired by. So the first book was Hades and Persephone inspired, and this one was Orpheus and, oh lord, Eurydice. So in this one, the female main character, she has a very traumatizing past. Her mom and some of her lovers, exes, whatever you want to call them, did some terrible things to her. So she's trying to like, she kind of still is in recovery of that. She's kind of a loner. She doesn't really know like how to be. And her brother is actually part of the mafia, so I thought that was an interesting twist. I guess there's another series that Sav R. Miller wrote that had her brother as the main character, so I definitely want to go back and read that series. But anyway, I digress. And he is obviously very protective of her, and she is out with some of her friends at school. Remember, she's a loner, so she's not exactly close with anybody, but she's like trying to find friends. So she goes to this auction where it's supposed to be with like a bunch of rich people can auction on like dates or like sex with the people that sign up. I know. But the male main character, he's a rock star. It's actually a rock star that she used to be obsessed with when she was younger, which I thought was an interesting dynamic. And he sees her at the auction, he zeroes in on her, and he's like, she's mine, I'm gonna bid on her. So he does. And the story goes from there. I don't want to give any spoilers, but if you know the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, then you might kind of like have an idea of where the story is going to go. But I love how the author talked about obsession, because it's definitely like a stalker romance, okay? and kind of like the double-sided coin that obsession can be, and how it can affect both people, and how it kind of like changes who you are as a person. I don't know, definitely more psychological than I thought it was going to be, but I was here for it. I was here for it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a good time. Okay, then I read my book club book. I was cutting it real close this time, you guys. I literally finished it like an hour before book club. Like right at the end of the month. It almost didn't happen. But Never Have I Ever by Joshua Jackson. I don't want to go too much into my thoughts because I will link the live show up above that was on Katie's channel where we talked about our full thoughts of this book. But the setup for this one is that it's basically a bunch of housewives getting together for book club, and then this rogue newcomer comes and she gets them to play like a variation of Never Have I Ever. And it kind of exposes the past of this female main character, and it's like a whirlwind. Okay, it's a whirlwind. Definitely a very interesting story. This did have plot twists that I don't think any of us expected. I don't think any of us in the book club predicted the plot twist. So like if you want a good plot twist, I think you could definitely enjoy parts of this book. There were some parts that were slow though. So like I was very much like in the middle. So I just gave it a 3 star. But if you want the full thoughts and the full breakdown of everything, then you can go to our live show. We do talk about spoilers, so just be sure you pay attention so that when we start talking about spoilers, you can click out if you want to read the book. But yeah, it wasn't like a new favorite thriller, but at least it had plot twists I wasn't expecting, which is definitely what we wanted. Then I finished with a 5-star read. This was the perfect thing for me at the time. We have A Love Most Fatal by Kath Richards. This is her debut novel, and I was eating it up. I think whether you liked Butcher and Blackbird or whether you didn't, I feel like you should still give this a try because it does give like dark rom-com, okay? Like it's a dark romance, it's a mafia romance. There's a lot of murder and violence and things like that, and kidnapping and all the things that you would normally get in a mafia romance, okay? But it's also like a rom-com where the humor was really good and the romance itself is definitely more on the sweeter side. In this one, the female main character is actually the one who's in charge of the mafia. She's the boss. She took over after her father died because he only had daughters. So it's her and her 2 sisters and her mom trying to run everything basically. So kind of like dealing with the gender norms of mafia, I think was also an interesting take that the author took with this book, because I think a lot of mafia books can be a little bit chauvinistic, a little misogynist, right? The stereotype definitely lends itself to that, but this definitely takes an interesting feminist take on mafia, and I really liked it. And this one, the male main character, he is the math middle school teacher for the female main character's nephew. So she like has to go to the parent-teacher conference for something that her nephew did, and that's when they meet, and the story just goes from there. This has forced proximity. Like I said, definitely laugh out loud in moments, but there are also moments where I was like kicking my feet. There are moments where I was scared someone was gonna die. It really is the best of both worlds. It really is like everything you love from a rom-com and everything you love from a mafia book, all wrapped up into one cute little package that's like a little bit deadly. So easy 5 stars. I ate it up. It was exactly what I needed, and I'm really excited to read the second book too. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. Be sure to give this video a like and leave a comment down below telling me the best book that you read in the month of February, and be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see how many books I end up reading in the month of March. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.